Welcome to episode 70 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. Let that be your last battlefield.
In this week's episode, the Enterprise must deal with a dispute between two aliens from the same world when each comes aboard in unusual circumstances. They both claim to represent part of their planet's population, one seeking political asylum, and the other requesting his compatriot be handed over. Kirk and his crew attempt to diffuse tensions, but can they bring the enemies together, or is it too late to end their battle?
You're being very loose with your accusations and drawing conclusions without any facts.
Good evening, Ian. How are you?
I'm not too bad, Gerry. How are you?
Still drawing conclusions without any facts.
That's more Spock's thing, isn't it?
Yes. And he was a bit rubbish again this week when he's asked for his opinion or for information. Don't know.
Yeah, not as bad as McCoy, who just showed up at the start and then vanished.
Rest week for him.
Wee cameo.
Yeah.
But still another solid Season 3 episode.
A very decent, solid Season 3 episode, yeah. I have one major issue with it, which we can discuss. But overall, it was good, strong.
Yeah, a little bit on the nose, maybe. But
yeah, it was very on the nose.
Yeah, but it still doesn't detract.
Literally, people with a black and a white face to say. Yeah.
I like the way they discussed it.
Yes, although some of the attitudes, Kirk's view of things is a little bit too black and white for my liking.
And Spock's as well.
Uh-huh.
So you got people from white to yellow and brown to black. It doesn't mention the fact there was a blue guy in the ship last week and a green guy a couple of weeks ago.
Very true.
Anyway.
I thought perhaps, there was a lack of, it might be unfair, a lack of bravery with the writing.
Okay. Yeah, no, I can understand that, yeah.
A little bit too...
They're trying to be subtle, some places where they could be more blatant, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes you have to take a position.
Yeah. But they don't take any position
here at all. Which is what we'll get to.
Yeah.
Anything you want to discuss? Anything you want to say?
Well, we could chuck the socials in early.
Get that over and done with. Everyone hates that part.
They'll hit your skip button.
Including me.
10 seconds ago, if you want to avoid it. We are at Trek Podcast on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. You can find us on YouTube and at the website astartrekpodcast.com. So wherever you want to talk to us or discuss the episodes, you have the opportunity, and we will no doubt respond with great dignity and... No, we won't. That's a lie. We'll just give you abuse. Carry on. Shall we get into this episode?
Let's crack on.
Captain's log to start once again.
5730.2.
We get some information about a mission that's going to be more in the background today. They're heading to the planet Ariana. There's been a bacterial invasion. I think that's not it says an attack, but I think it means a natural...
I once had to go to the old clinic, get a few...
So if they don't deal with this, the whole planet will be rendered lifeless, so they're going to go over there and decontaminate it. Did you immediately wonder whether this would happen?
I didn't really think about it.
Remember all those times they've got like vaccines and stuff, and it's like, oh well, but Spock's missing. So let's hold off on the whole vaccine thing. Half of them probably think it's a lie anyway.
It's a conspiracy with Bill Gates or something.
Yeah.
Up on the bridge, Chekhov tells Kirk that they are about 3 hours away from this planet, whilst Uhura has to let the health ministry know that they will start decontaminating as soon as they enter the planet's orbit.
Do you think down on the planet Ariana there's like protests with folks saying no decontamination?
They're all taking horse dewormer or whatever it is. That's all we need.
They're injecting poison into our atmosphere. We don't even know if tests have been done.
They've rushed us through.
Hope they do it twice.
Sulu, he notes a space vehicle coming into range.
It's an interesting phrase, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not the usual.
No. Yes, it's following an erratic course, and it's a shuttle, potentially the one stolen from Starbase 4 2 weeks earlier. Uhura struggles to make contact, but Spock is able to report there is one life form aboard, but he might be suffocating due to atmosphere leakage.
Yeah, he's certainly injured or ill.
So Kirk has Sulu, rather than beam the guy in, use the tractor beams to bring the entire shuttle aboard, and he and Spock head down along with a security team.
Yeah, the craft lands. It's a very impressive visual. I'm assuming that's a remaster.
Yeah, because in the original one it said Enterprise on the shuttle.
Okay. And Kirk and Spock, they open the door to the hangar and prepare to enter. However, before they can, a man falls in front of them.
And we get the credits, I believe.
We do, although you should point out that he's got a half black and a half white face. He's like an uncommitted mime.
Yeah, fair enough. After the credits, we're in sickbay, where McCoy is treating this man, and Spock asks whether he's naturally half black and half white.
Obviously, you can tell, no, he's not. It's makeup, look.
McCoy says that in his professional opinion, this is the man's natural colouring, and Kirk is dumbfounded, despite having seen purple, yellow, green, blue, and whatever other colour of people.
Yeah. In fairness, with such a distinct separation, that's unusual.
Sure.
In any case, they all put forward their own, I have to say, outlandish and unsupported theories.
Bones, what do you make of it?
Well, I can't give you any specific circumstance that will explain him.
Well, judging by looking at him, we know at the very least he is the result of a very dramatic conflict. Spock?
There's no theory, Captain, from the basic work of Mandel to the most recent nucleotide studies, which would explain our captive. All gradations of color, from black to brown to yellow to white, are genetically predictable. We must therefore conclude that this alien is that often unaccountable rarity, a mutation, one of a kind.
Yes, I would agree that's the case here.
Your prognosis, Doctor?
Well, I can't give you one, Jim. I've never worked on anyone like him or anything like him.
Yet you are pumping him full of your noxious potions as if he were a human.
When in doubt, the book prevails, Mr. Spock. I've run tests. Blood is blood, even when it's green like yours. The organs are there. They're rearranged to a degree, plus a few I've never seen before. Now, I've enriched the oxygen content of his blood and pumped in a strong stimulant. And I must say, his recuperative powers appear to be excellent.
With your permission, Captain, I shall do some further research and join you on the bridge.
He's coming around, Doctor.
Well, touch and go there for a minute, but you're out of danger now.
Okay, as I said, a lot of assumptions made there based on nothing.
Oh, it must be the result of a dramatic conflict.
No, not at all.
The basis for that statement is...
I mean...
he's a bit tired.
Yep. Also, they've seen creatures with antennae and all sorts. They've seen monsters that are made out of gas, but this seems... The fact that someone's got two different colours, pigmentation, seems to have thrown them more than anything else we've ever seen.
Even on Earth, you have creatures with stripy coats.
Yeah.
It's not like it's very unusual to have more than one colouring.
No.
Just humans don't have it.
Yep. They're making more of a deal about this than they should have.
Spock's obsessed.
He is. He's got to do more research.
I must know where this man is from and where I need to send him back to.
Is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? That's
I can tell by genetic research. I liked Spock's little dig about McCoy's noxious potions.
It's good to see their back and forth continue.
Yeah, he always delivers it deadpan. I think McCoy and Chapel are on half wages for this one because that's them done now.
This chap, he wakes up and tells Kirk that he has heard of the Enterprise. Kirk points out that it's from the same Federation as the shuttlecraft that he has stolen. Now, I didn't like Kirk in this entire scene. He's very aggressive and accuses him without speaking to him first.
The whole episode is antagonistic towards this guy.
Yeah.
He starts off antagonistic and he never calms down.
He doesn't ask for his side of the story.
Nope.
Must be a thief. I mean, it might very well. He could be on a mission here to prevent some disaster. Anything at all where he's had to take this vehicle.
Yeah. I think we heard at the top of the show this next bit where he talks about accusations being made without facts.
Yes.
And he says that his need gave him a moral right to use the ship.
And then there's a shouting match.
Yeah, Kirk says he can argue to Starfleet Command, and the guy tells him his name's Lokai, he's from the planet Cheron, and Kirk notes that that's in an uncharted area of space, probably not uncharted from Lokai's point of view.
No.
Given that he comes from there. He then proceeds to irritate him by asking why is he so far from home, what's he doing with the ship, before Lokai fires back that he's a monotone human who's condemning and then attacking, and then refuses to answer any more questions.
Let's say the way this has been handled isn't good at all. There was no need to be so aggressive from the outset. For a start, the chap's just woken up. He's obviously not feeling too great. He's in the hospital in a strange place. He's no particular threat or danger as far as we can see.
Nope, and they've treated people who've done far worse, far better.
Yeah, no, not good from Kirk here. In fact, the entire episode isn't Kirk's finest moments.
It's one of his worst.
Yeah.
McCoy chips in one more time to note that the guy's physical readings are remarkable, and if he had them, he'd be one of the most powerful humans that ever existed.
I'm not sure if that's ever shown to be true throughout this
He
episode.
doesn't fight any humans, so we don't know. Kirk wants to learn more about him and the planet, but he claims to be tired, which Kirk doesn't believe.
No, so he communicates to Uhura to tell Starbase 4 they will be returning the craft and the user as soon as their mission is complete. McCoy then confirms that the mutation theory, I think it was his, I'm not sure, is the best to have for his report at that moment, as Chekhov communicates through, informing them of contact with an alien ship.
Yes, so Kirk and Spock are going to head to the bridge, where they find that due to budget cuts, the ship is invisible.
Yes, it's actually quite an inventive writing. We don't have any budget. Like, we need to cut budget. This like you can sitting around. You can see them sitting around the writer's room.
Everyone's invisible.
Everyone's invisible. Yes.
Yeah, it's a bit like in the OK Corral when they only had half the town.
Yeah,
They just kind of write around what they've got available.
I think that's good.
So you use a stolen ship that you've filmed before, and an invisible ship you don't have to film. So you don't have to do any new exterior shots.
Yeah, I mean, they even use extreme or maximum
Magnification,
yes.
yes. That should have been the name of our podcast, Maximum Magnification. That'd have been better.
Spock, however, he does confirm that the ship is out there. It's not a cloaked Romulan ship, and it is totally alien in terms of configuration with an unknown power source.
As usual, Uhura has failed to make contact, and Spock says that there are no identifiable weapons.
Yeah, you're right. I made that note as well. Uhura and Spock, I mean, they're getting this pattern of being quite useless.
Yeah, you should remember back in, I think, Balance of Terror, Uhura was able to hack into the guy's cameras and show video from on his bridge.
Yeah. It seems like about 3 or 4 times a week now, all she does is say, sorry, I've still not got any.
Yeah, they're not answering. I've rung 2 or 3 times.
Did you leave a message?
Yeah.
Try something else. Email them.
Exactly. The vessel suddenly heads towards them on a collision course, and they're unable to evade it as Kirk calls for a red alert, and Sulu informs the crew to brace for impact.
We should also note that Spock says there are 1 or 2 people on board.
Yes, okay. There's no impact, though, when it reaches them, and Spock reports that it simply disintegrated but deposited an alien presence. It's a very strange phrasing.
Yeah. So we see this presence materialise in a flash. It's another two-toned man who surprises them on the bridge, causing Kirk to ask Spock for an explanation about his belief that Lokai was one of a kind.
Yeah, indeed. This guy introduces himself as, I think, Bele, okay. And Kirk assumes he's from Cheron, which I think is acknowledged.
Yeah, I think Bele, what he says is, firstly, he apologises for his unorthodox arrival, but tells them that the strain of his arduous pursuit exceeded his ship's capabilities and he had to ditch it effectively.
Yeah, it was going to disintegrate one way or another, so he had to get towards the Enterprise.
And he explains to the curious Spock that it was covered in materials that rendered it invisible, and goes on to present his mission.
Not specific materials that we can...
Not just some materials. Yeah, you know that...
generic invisibility materials. He has come to claim Lokai, but Kirk is reluctant to release him without due process.
Yeah, he makes it clear that everyone on board is under his command, and that due process will be required. Bele apologises. I quite like the way Bele is... The aggression and the frustration is always simmering there, but he does try and present...
He's like a right-wing politician.
Yeah.
He's trying to put on this presentable face,
but at some
to
point,
cover up for his hideous ideas.
Yeah, but you can see the anger and the hate.
Yes.
Underneath escaping.
As soon as he's even slightly irritated, yes, comes pouring out. He explains that he's chief officer of the Commission on Political Traitors, and that Lokai has been tried and convicted of treason. He then escaped, and Bele needs to get to him.
And so Kirk tells him he's in sickbay, but reminds him that he has to obey the regulations of the Enterprise. And the apparently courteous Bele asks for his permission to speak to him.
Yes, I think Kirk's going to go with him down to sickbay.
I'm not sure if I would allow that. At first, I would keep them separated, and I would perhaps then go to Lokai and say, there's a chap here, Bele.
Yeah, rather than surprising him.
Because this guy could be a killer who's about to just murder him
Why would
on
you believe
sight.
his story, yeah. So down in sickbay, Bele and Lokai do renew acquaintances, and Bele commends Kirk on detaining Lokai, who in turn indicates that he is disinclined to return to Cheron.
Yeah, he makes a feeble grab at Bele at this point, insisting that he will not return as it's a land of murdering oppressors. Kirk, however, reassures him that they are going to the starbase.
I allowed your fellow countrymen here simply as a courtesy.
And you see how this killer repays you, as he repays all his benefactors.
Benefactors. He's a liar. He raided our homes, tore us from our families, herded us together like cattle, and then sold us as slaves.
They were savages, Captain. We took them into our hearts, our homes. We educated them.
Yes, just education enough to serve the master race.
You were the product of our love. You repaid us with murder.
Why should a slave show mercy to the enslaver?
Slaves. That was changed thousands of years ago. You were freed.
Freed? Were we free to be men? Free to be husbands and fathers? Free to live our lives in equality and dignity?
Yes, you were free if you knew how to use your freedom. You were free enough to slaughter and to burn all the things that had been built.
I tried to break the chains of 100 million people. My only crime is that I failed. To that I do plead guilty.
There is an order in things. He asks for utopia in a day. It can't be done.
Not in a day. And not in 10 times 10,000 years by your thinking. To you, we are a loathsome breed who will never be ready. Genocide for my people is the plan for your utopia.
Insane, filthy little plotter of ruin. You vicious subverter of every decent thought. Oh, you're coming back to pay for your crimes.
I know you, and all those with whom you are plotting to take power permanently. When I return to Cheron, you will understand what power is. I will have armies of followers.
As you mentioned a moment ago, I mean, the hatred is it seeping out. I mean, some of the language is savage, and I don't know if just now he calls them animals, and it's like subhuman scum type.
Yeah, and people, they should be grateful for what they've been given and not expect equality.
Yeah.
And it can't be done overnight. That's the usual garbage you get here.
Of course it is.
Oh, we can't have equality because it would take, it's too much, too big, too much change.
We'll do a little bit at a time, We won't, yeah.
You should accept and be grateful for the little crumbs that we give you off our table.
Later on we'll discuss it in a bit more detail, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, so Kirk intervenes at this stage, offering to help a reconciliation.
Yeah, this is after Lokai's demanded political asylum. He claims that he led revolutionaries and not criminals. But Kirk is quite clear. And he says the Enterprise is a prison for him.
Yeah, that's a really aggressive way to do it.
It's as if he shouldn't be a prisoner. What he should be saying just now, I mean, I prefer it if he actually took a position right now, but I can understand why he's saying, okay, it's not my position, my role to be to judge the situation. So we'll keep you separated. I won't, treat anyone any differently. We'll do what we've got to do. We'll take you to the starbase, and you can both, then it's up to the Starfleet command to listen to you and make a decision.
Yeah.
But right now, you've been talking about this being a prison for him is not, unless he's simply talking about the fact that he apparently stole this craft. But
yeah, yes, he's talking about being a shuttlecraft thief. Because that's the only thing he can really relate to.
But after he's heard this,
he doesn't care about
that accusations, he should be a little bit more open to the fact that there's far bigger issues at play here. And
I mean, to be fair to Kirk, this was all kind of high level arguments. There was no specific accusations of an individual having done anything specific. So how can he respond to it?
Sure, but at least he knows now that the theft of the shuttlecraft wasn't just for a joyride.
Well, does he? He still doesn't know what the theft of the shuttlecraft was for.
Well, the fact is that Lokai is saying, I'm leading the revolutionaries.
Yeah.
It's a political act.
Sure, but... Okay. I'm not convinced that the taking of the shuttlecraft was in a specific purpose relating to that act. I think he just needed a ship.
No, he's been hunted down.
He's been hunted by Bele.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yes. Yeah, so Kirk, like we say, fobs this off and angrily reminds Lokai that he's going to get charges over this shuttlecraft, and Bele demands that Lokai be returned to Cheron for judgment.
In fairness, he does say nope. Cheron is not a member of the Federation. There's no extradition protocol in place, so that won't be possible.
Yeah.
Bele is clearly unhappy and insists that as he doesn't have a ship of his own, they have to take him to Cheron immediately.
Yes, Kirk refuses that, telling him that they're on a mission at the moment, and after that, both men will be dropped off at Starbase 4. Bele's also, I think, disappointed because Kirk's indicated just prior to this that he's not willing to take sides in their dispute.
And Bele's attitude at this point seems to turn as he notes this is not satisfactory, and Kirk has to firmly remind him of what his options are, and this, for the moment, seems to avert any further argument.
I think Kirk's quite plain with him. He says you have to choose another course, and he appears to back down and is taken to guest quarters.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I mean, Bele's been given the guest quarters and he's been wined and dined, we see later, whereas Lokai's the prisoner.
He stole a ship.
Anyway, he tells Lokai to rest his vocal cords and he will have ample opportunity to exercise them in Starbase 4. Chekhov interrupts at this point with some worrying news.
Yeah, they're off course and the ship seems to have changed heading all by itself.
So up on the bridge, Kirk on his arrival is told that they are moving away from Ariana, and Spock again has no explanation, whilst Sulu admits that he's no control.
Yes, so Kirk calls down to Scotty in engineering, who reports no malfunction and is ordered to switch to auxiliary power.
But this doesn't solve the problem, and Chekhov tells him they're moving away at Warp 8 for the coal sack.
Yeah, I think that's the name of a nebula in the southern region.
Is it? Okay.
Well, how you have south in 3D space, I'm not 100% certain.
Red alert is called again, and for the second time this is shown visually by quite an annoying zoom effect.
Well, I think that's meant to be a tribute to Batman, because you've got the guy from Batman on it.
You think? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They do it every time they call Red Alert in this episode.
Okay, that makes sense. That's that's better. And Kirk puts out a ship-wide communication detailing their situation. And as he does, we see Lokai react by getting up and running out of sickbay.
Yeah, because the staff all take their eye off the ball a wee bit. Scotty arrives on the bridge now as Chekhov and Spock confirm they are heading for Cheron.
Yeah, that lies on the course that they're on. And this is confirmed by Bele, who strides on to the bridge and claims the ship to be under his control.
Yes, and he makes an important point here that if you miss it, the ending makes no sense.
Okay.
So he says he's been pursuing Lokai for 50,000 years.
Yes.
Which is a very important point.
Very long time.
Because you assume he's maybe been a year or 6 months, or, he's just on a mission.
Yeah.
And that would make the ending very confusing.
It would. Scotty, who is now on the bridge, interrupts and tells Kirk that they are at Warp 10 getting faster as a worried Lokai arrives, again demanding sanctuary.
Yes, he claims he will not return to Cheron, but Bele tells him Kirk cannot help him. He's on his way to final punishment.
Yeah, I think he sneers and mocks him. He says there's no escape now for you, the poor and oppressed you.
Oh yes, and he also gives this sort of spiel. So Lokai claims he's got a just cause, and Bele notes that every planet he's been to, he's been able to persuade people to help him, but that won't happen here. So obviously he's been able to persuade folk that his cause is just.
Yes.
Wherever he's been throughout the universe.
Yeah, and he maniacally demands that Kirk kill Bele.
A bit of a desperate manoeuvre, he does it again later on.
And okay, so I think now we can discuss the big issue, because Kirk claims that they're both two of a kind and orders security to put them both in the brig, and that is the big problem I've got. The show doesn't take a position. And this is something that you hear often in real life, and it's just not. It's just a lazy. It's often said by those who have the position of power already. They have they don't want equality, so they'll say things like, "Oh, listen, both sides, can you just stop fighting, stop hating each other?" And they're talking about perhaps political conflicts around the world, whether it be in Israel and with Palestine or Ireland, or it might be in terms of race, the black community against the whites. And it's very, very easy to say, listen, can we just stop this fighting if you are the one that's sort of holding the ball when it's stopped?
Yeah, if the status quo suits you.
Precisely. You need to take a position. You say, no, it's not. They're not just both as bad as each other. That, and just about any conflict, there is a side to which you can take a position and say, no, I believe they are in the right. And if we just stop now and say, right, no more fighting, whoever's got that status quo, the positive status quo, is going to be happy. And for people who have been oppressed for many hundreds or thousands of years, to tell them to stop fighting for this equality is unacceptable.
Yes,
It's absolute nonsense.
It's like people who say if you don't have friends from all the different political ends of the spectrum, then you need to reassess how you look at life. And say, well, why would I want friends who don't believe these people are equal?
Yeah.
Who don't believe these people should have rights? Who don't believe these people should be treated the same way as everybody else?
Mm-hmm. Take a position, yes. And again, using other examples, it's like, oh, we need to hear both sides of an argument. No, you don't. Sometimes you take a position and you say, okay, there's flat earthers out there. They shouldn't get the same amount of news time or publicity as proper scientists.
No.
Just because they get an opinion, it's, they're not this. Everything shouldn't be. It's not, oh, you're just as bad as each other or give each other the same. No, take a position, be brave. I'm not even saying what side you need to take. But take a position that it's too lazy to say you're both as bad as each other. Let's stop the fight. Oh, yeah, again, going back to conflicts around the world. They say, come out to stop the fighting. Okay, what does that mean? Let's say there's no more fighting. So the people who've still got the power just keep the power then.
Yeah.
No, that's
the
not
oppressed folk just have to put up with it.
Yes, exactly.
People being occupied and people who are being...
America, we're talking about race. The white man institutionally runs the country. If you say, no more, let's not do that. There has to be, and sometimes there has to be fighting, whether it be, actual physical fighting.
That's part of the mechanism of the oppression.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah. And it can be this, same with any other sort of groups. It can be women's opportunity, women's rights. I'm sure the guys like to say, do you know what? Let's just not argue about it. Yeah, but that's because you're still in power. You run everything. Yeah, yeah. No, maybe the women should be fighting. Maybe it's quite
there's something to fight for.
Something to fight for, and once they get that equality, then we'll all just stop fighting. How about that?
Yeah, that makes much more sense.
So that's my big issue, and that's what I said at the start of the podcast. There's a lack of bravery here, where they have to not pick a side, but there is a side of the right and a side of the wrong. Make a choice. In my opinion here, from what we can gather and how Bele acts and how his behaviour progresses through this episode, it's quite clear that he's a scumbag.
Yeah,
his language and everything else, and his anger, and he's trying to present himself as being right. But he's no. I totally believe Lokai, and if he's a revolutionary who's trying to fight this oppression, then I'm right behind him.
Indeed.
Anyway,
yeah, it's a good point. Meanwhile,
where were we?
I can't remember. Yeah, so Kirk said he was not going to take sides, and that's upset you. He said they're as bad as one another. So Bele then says that they will not be able to change the ship's course. So Kirk orders that both men, even though it's only Bele that's done this, both men be placed in the brig. However, there's force fields around them, so the security team can't do that, nor can they shoot them.
But he doesn't even do this. Later on, they're having drinks together.
Well, that's because Bele backs down shortly. Lokai notes he was a fool to expect help from a man like Kirk.
And Kirk tries to reassert his authority by stating that the ship will be going to Ariana's. However, Bele refutes this, and he seems to fall asleep for a moment. Don't know if you caught that.
I'm not sure what was going on there,
yeah. As we see the Enterprise travel faster, Kirk then tells him that...
That could be him using his powers, I guess.
Yeah. And Kirk reminds him they're going to Ariana, says billions of lives depend on it.
In any event, Kirk has no intention of going to Bale's planet right now. He's going to destroy the ship if he doesn't change the course to Ariana's.
The rest of the crew looks worried and challenges Bele to call his bluff.
Indeed, he commences the self-destruct sequence. We get lots of extreme close-ups on all of them as he and Spock and Scotty verify their instructions, and I think we see Bele as well in extreme close-up.
I have to say, there's a close-up of Scotty and his extremely brown teeth.
Nice. Remaster hasn't done him any favours,
no,
I think.
I'm assuming it's from smoking.
Who can say?
But you certainly wouldn't do that these days. Close-up of your teeth.
The computer asks for a final code for a 30-second countdown, and Kirk asks for confirmation of their current course. Are they still headed for Cheron?
Spock tells him they are, and so Kirk activates this final step as the others break out in sweats. And as the clock ticks, Kirk and Bele stare at each other like gunfighters, waiting for someone to flinch.
Kirk indicates that once it gets down to 5 seconds, it's too late to stop the sequence.
And so with 6 seconds left, Bele buckles and Kirk aborts the destruction order. He didn't have time. He was actually at 6, then they had to take a few seconds to...
Yeah, well, maybe Kirk was lying about the 5-second thing.
Yeah, quite possibly. However, the ship is now going at warp 10 in a circle.
Yes,
That makes you feel
nowhere.
sick.
As Scotty says, they're going nowhere, but fast.
That's like the waltzers or whatever it is at the fairground. Makes you sick.
Lokai again urges them to kill Bele, but Bele offers a deal.
What's that?
He concedes that he should not have interrupted their mission of mercy, but says he'll release control to them if they promise to head back to Cheron as soon as they've been to Ariana.
Kirk refuses to negotiate, and Bele has a decision to make. Unfortunately, he decides to return control to Kirk. The red alert is cancelled, and Kirk then has a word with both of his guests.
Aye, sir.
Let me reaffirm my position, gentlemen. I could put you in the brig for what you've done, but I won't do it. Because you're new to this part of the galaxy, which is governed by the United Federation of Planets. We live in peace, with full exercise of individual rights. The need to resort to violence and force has long since passed, and it will not be tolerated aboard this ship. You are free to move about the ship. I hope that you'll take the opportunity to know more about the Federation through its best representatives, my crew. But let me make it clear. I will stand for no interference with the function of this ship. All hands, return to normal routine. Captain up.
You speak very well, Captain. Your words promise justice for all.
We try.
Yes, well, I have learned to wait for actions. After Ariana's, what is justice? I shall wait to see it dispensed.
Fascinating. 2 irrevocably hostile humanoids.
Disgusting is what I call them.
That description is not scientifically accurate.
Mr. Spock, the word disgusting describes exactly what I feel about those two.
That's enough for today. Those two are beginning to affect you.
Scotty's in no position to call anybody else disgusting,
No, not with those teeth.
and not with his misogyny and women murdering.
Exactly. We head to the rec room where we join Lokai as he tries to convince Sulu, Chekhov and some of the others that he is in the right, as Spock listens in.
He's like a real trade unionist here,
Yes.
just to get the workers on side.
Yeah. He tells them that it is not possible for them to understand his fear, as there is no persecution on Earth. But Chekhov remembers about reading about such things in his history class.
Yes, back in the 20th century, but they have no such primitive thinking today.
Spock seems slightly perturbed that they are engaging with Lokai, and he walks off. He scuttles off, doesn't he? Little grass.
Yeah,
As we have an interesting shot of the camera entering the room and with Lokai seen only as a shadow. I thought that was quite nice.
yeah, he's saying to this group, how can he make them feel what it's like to see people like yourself despised, slaughtered and denied basic decency and forced to fight wars for others?
Yeah. I mean, you have to ask, why would Lokai be lying? You know, if you're thinking who's telling the truth here.
Yeah. Well, the one that reminds me of, remember the one in season 1 with the guy from the alternate universe version of himself?
Yeah.
It was a wee bit like that. The guy thought he was being pursued, but he was just insane.
Okay. I think we go to, is it Kirk's quarters later?
Well, I've got, the captain's mess, but I don't
Sure.
know. Yeah.
Where we see him and Spock entertain Bele, who keeps up his guise of agreement with them and asks how long before they hear from Starfleet Command.
You feel like Bill's been trying some funny handshakes and stuff at the start of this.
Oh, for sure.
Kirk suggests that a decision is likely already on its way, so Bele proposes a toast to their wisdom.
Yeah, he's overly familiar with him.
Oh, I think this is his approach, isn't it?
Whose approach?
Bill's.
No, I'm saying that Kirk is. Kirk should be taking a
Kirk's
step back
over-
here.
no, yes, he's allowed himself to be charmed almost.
Mm-hmm. Spock, however, is more circumspect and notes that the answer that's on its way might not be the one that Bele expected, and that the stealing of the craft may be of more of a concern to Starfleet Command.
Indeed, but Bele suggests that in terms of scale, the theft of a shuttle does not compare to murdering thousands of people.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
But I don't think he's accused him directly of doing this. I think he's accusing him of inspiring others to do this. So.
Yeah.
Anyways.
But in any case, it doesn't matter at this point who's right or wrong. Yes, a shuttlecraft is insignificant when you're discussing the bigger picture.
Yeah. Spock says they don't even know that this is a fact, so Bele proposes some common ground. We can all agree that he's a criminal. So this is, again, it's like talk his reputation down, therefore nothing he says has validity.
Yeah, but it's now Kirk who notes that all they know is that he took a shuttlecraft, so fair enough.
It's a bit like the George Floyd thing. He gets murdered by a policeman. It's like, oh yeah, but he did drugs.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Therefore, everything else is irrelevant.
Yeah.
So Uhura comes on comms now with Starfleet's response. They've considered Bele's request, but they refuse it because intergalactic treaties hold that nobody can be extradited without a fair hearing.
So despondent Bele moans that Lokai has again found allies, even if they don't realise that is what they are, and resigns himself to him escaping once more, which will result in apparently thousands of deaths for an unwarranted cause through his lies and accusations.
Is he stoking up these people to fight for their freedom when if they just accepted that they were inferior, there would be no killing?
Well, that's it. You know your place.
Indeed.
Kirk declares that their minds will not be twisted by Lokai or him, and Bele responds by saying that it is obvious Lokai is of a lower breed. So
Here we go, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. He's not smart enough to realise that even if he believes that, that's not how you influence people necessarily.
Yeah, this is the bit that really upset me with the writing as well. So they have to, not rather than letting you as a viewer figure out he's black on one side, he's black on the other side, they're having to now have Bele explicitly say, oh, can't you tell the difference between us? Look, he is white on the right side and I am black on the right side.
Yeah.
So Spock tries to offer a lesson from the history of Vulcan, which Bele has no interest in, because he does not think people like Lokai can be trusted to act with self-discipline, because obviously they're inferior.
Clearly.
Kirk urges reconciliation, and Spock says that change is natural, and comes back to his favourite topic of skin colour.
Yes.
And he points out the people of Cheron must at one point have had monotone skin, and Kirk agrees because he's suddenly an expert on this, despite his earlier theory about a conflict.
Yeah, they really...
Which has no scientific basis whatsoever.
No. But he then takes a communication from Scotty, informing him that they are orbiting Ariana and is instructed to start the decontamination process. Bele then asks about the theory that humans came from apes. I think he's having obviously a little dig here, this is suggesting this is a stupid idea.
And Spock says that's not even the actual theory.
No, he corrects him on
common ancestor.
Yeah.
Up on the bridge, and I was stunned by this scene. This might be the most shocking scene of the episode.
Go for it.
Scotty, Chekhov, Sulu and Uhura somehow managed to decontaminate this planet without any mistakes.
They don't disintegrate anyone.
They don't shoot anybody. They don't decontaminate the wrong planet. They don't do anything wrong. They just do the job.
And within a matter of seconds.
Yes.
And in fact, they've got enough time to do it for a second pass.
Yes, indeed. Meanwhile, the protesters on the surface are like,
I'm burning, I'm burning.
Oh, we can breathe. Oh. Protest something else next week.
I think actually Sulu is told to let it rip.
Yes.
It's not. It was rough.
We're burning off the pollution in the atmosphere.
In any case, he is successful and then asks for directions for where they are to head next, and Kirk tells him Starbase 4 before inviting Bele to join them on the bridge again, being too friendly.
Yes, we then get 2 captain's logs with a very brief bridge scene in between them.
Well, I was going to ask this. The second one is in no way required. I can understand.
Well, the second one's also dated earlier than the first one.
It is, yes. So the first one is 5730.7, the second one is 0.6. But from a production point of view, it's either maybe getting into an advert or recapping the story or just splitting up a scene if you want to continue on the bridge. But this wasn't required and didn't do any of that.
No. Yeah, so the first one's just saying exactly what's just happened. We've done the Ariana mission. We're going to Starbase 4. Everything's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Then up on the bridge, you got Chekhov, Uhura and Spock saying there's problems. Spock says memory banks are burnt out, and Bele confesses he's taken out the self-destruct in the navigation. And
he shows how he did this by shooting electricity from his fingers.
Yeah, I don't know why he did that. He obviously clearly didn't do it that way before. You should have noticed. Anyway, then Kirk quickly goes back in time to do a log a few hours before his previous log.
Now, do you have any trivia about that? Is that a mistake?
It's a mistake, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. He calls him Commissioner Bele, which is an interesting nod there, and he burns out He says he's burned out the destruct mechanism, and through the power of his will, has taken over directional control of the Enterprise.
Yeah. This is everything we saw. We needed the bridge scene, so I don't know why these two logs were here. I
do have to admit this. There's certain scenes were added in syndication. So I think maybe the scene in between, or maybe the certain parts of this end were not originally in the episode. So that'll probably cover it.
In any case, we return to the bridge as Lokai enters, and hears Kirk admit that he can't control what is happening.
You have signed my death warrant. I warned you what to expect. Will you continue to let this mockery of justice go on? If you are partisans of justice, prove it. Kill him. We are not killers. What do? Carry justice on your tongues? You will beg for it, but you won't fight or die for it.
After so many years of leading the fight, you seem very much alive.
I doubt that the same can be said for many of his followers.
You're finished, Lokai? Oh, we've got your kind penned in on Cheron into little districts, and it's not going to change. You've combed the galaxy and come up with nothing but monocolored trash, do-gooders, and bleeding hearts. You're dead, you half-white.
Useless pieces of bland flesh. I'll take you with me, you half-blood.
Theo, you keep this up and you'll never get to Cheron with your prisoner. The bridge of the ship will be irreparably damaged. This will be your final battlefield. Your 50,000 years of pursuit will have been wasted. And you, Lokai, will die here in space. You'll inspire no more disciples. Your cause will be ended.
Remember, Captain, political sanctuary is my right. I am your prisoner. Honor that right, or the fight will go on and your ship will burn up.
You've made your point.
If you listen to his legalistic trickery, I shall have to destroy this ship and everybody aboard.
I understand. Will you return the Enterprise to my control?
Somewhat bizarrely, Bele just says, yeah, okay.
He does, yes.
So I take it Bele's problem is that the only folk who support Lokai are woke, virtue signalling social justice warriors.
Yeah, obviously. Spock notes that they are now within scanning range of Cheron, and so Kirk has it magnified on the screen.
It's soon to remember at this point that neither Bele nor Lokai's been here for 50,000 years.
Ah, yes. What does it show? What do we see?
Yeah, they're all dead.
Yeah. There are large cities, uninhabited, extensive traffic systems, but no traffic, and animals and vegetation are now running riot.
Yeah, so basically the humanoid population is dead and other forms of life are taking over the landscape.
Bele and Lokai obviously take this badly and blame each other. They attack, but stop as Kirk pleads with them to understand that this aggression is what caused all of their people to die, and each of their causes no longer exists.
Yes, he urges them to give up their hate and live with them in the Federation, but Lokai calls him a dreamer and runs off.
And again, that just, that's my point with it. That's give up your hate. What does that mean? And in practical terms, it doesn't mean anything. Just stop fighting.
Yeah, stop caring about what's important.
Yeah, don't try and, if it's an unjust society, then if you just stop, the injustice remains.
Yeah. Anyway, Bele refuses to allow Lokai to escape, so he goes after him, and we see them running through the ship whilst imagining the devastation on the planet below.
Yeah, they're running like weirdos as well. Don't know why.
Apparently the two running scenes were filmed at the same time and they didn't realise when they ran into each other.
Okay.
Spock tracks them on sensors but doesn't realise they're in a transporter room.
Yeah, that's where they get to, and Lokai, he activates it before standing on the pod and sending himself down to Cheron. How does he know how to use that?
He's a genius.
He's not a genius.
He's very powerful.
He's not.
He's tens of thousands of years old. He's acquired knowledge. He's been flying a Federation shuttle.
How many times,
he might not even be using it properly. If they've got powers, he might just be saying, make it work.
He's going back to 1955.
Yeah.
Every time I sit in a new car, it takes you a few minutes to go, okay, where's the where's the start button, right?
How the lights work.
How the lights work, and also what do you need? You put the foot in the brake, then press it, and it takes you a few minutes. This is and that's something that you've driven for 30 years.
Yeah.
Not quite 30 years, I'm not that old.
I guess he's figured it out.
Okay.
Bele as well, because shortly after Lokai beams down, we see Bele doing the exact same thing. I don't think we've seen that shot before from inside the transporter pads. looking out to the controls. Anyway, they beam down, and Spock says it's illogical to expect reason from people who hold such extreme positions. That's nonsense.
That's not true either.
Just because a position is extreme doesn't mean it's irrational.
And what does extreme mean? They're extreme from each other.
Yes.
But it doesn't make you say an extreme view is...
Yeah, there's a sort of a presumption that the middle is always the correct...
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, take a position. One is not extreme. One shouldn't be extreme.
Yeah, it's just nonsense from Spock. Telling them that their hate is all that matters to them, and Kirk saying that maybe they used to have more, but it's all they have left.
And again, that's just not the case. If you think about real life situations, it's not about hate.
I imagine right now Lokai feels, in fact both of them probably just feel devastation and anger rather than just hate.
Yeah,
probably very unhappy.
So what were they actually thinking? Where were they going? Why were they going down there?
Well, they can't think of anything else to do. They'll continue their chase forever.
Do they need to eat?
Well, probably the plants aren't dead. There'll still be food.
And the animals, yeah. Okay. And so Kirk sets off for Starbase 4 with a sigh.
Yeah, presumably to return their shuttle.
Yeah. They'll be happy enough, apparently.
Yeah, another adventure next week.
Yeah. No, I mean, Starbase 4, don't care about... What do you mean?
Genocide? What? Slavery?
Nah. I've got our craft back.
Oh, well, that's the end.
Good episode. Major issue, major problem. That doesn't mean to say it's not an enjoyable episode.
No, and it does raise the issues at least. Even if it doesn't conclude.
It addresses that the issues exist, but without, like I say, the bravery of taking a position.
If you want more, I mean, there's some Next Generation episodes and a lot of Deep Space Nine is about the occupation of a planet by another species and then what happens when they leave. There's some good stuff in there if you're interested in that sort of thing in the Star Trek universe.
Okay. So, did you enjoy it?
Yeah, no, I did enjoy it. Were you content with the ending?
Not really, no.
Yeah, it's a bit anticlimactic.
I would like to have, again, reiterating the same point, I would like them to have came to a conclusion and says, yeah, you know what, this guy is the bad guy or else, or otherwise,
Yeah, condemn Bele in some way. Yeah. Because, yeah, I was going to say which do you feel was in the right, but obviously Lokai was in the right.
He was, yeah.
Do you think there's anything Kirk could have done differently?
Yes. Discuss it through the podcast, Arian.
No, in terms of holding a position, but in terms of how he managed the situation, do you think he should have done it in a different way?
Yeah, he should have been more open to listening at the start and then treating him... Well, I'd have treated Lokai better, but at the very least treated him equally, and that is the problem here. I think that, again, it's been reflected by Kirk. He's on this ship, Lokai, and if he feels he's been oppressed, he gets onto this place where he wants sanctuary, and he's told, no, you're a prisoner, you're a scumbag, you're a thief. Well, the oppressor...
And he sees all the machinations of power are working around the other guy.
Yes, and he's managed to get to the top table and drinking with the captain.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. Wonder what happened to McCoy. Normally he'd have an opinion.
Maybe he was away. Remember that time he got to go back and bang that woman after 380 days or something, or a year? I think he's probably way to do that.
Maybe. Or just slept through it.
Yeah, he's getting old.
Yeah.
Trivia?
Originally aired on the 10th of January 1969. It was directed by Judd Taylor, third of 5 for him, so you can hear more about him back in the podcast for the Paradise Syndrome. Oliver Crawford wrote the teleplay. It's an interesting one. After a long break, this was the second of his 3 episodes. So if you want to hear more about him, you need to go all the way back to the podcast for the Galileo 7, which is also where some of the footage of the shuttlecraft in the original version of this episode came from. Frank Gorshin, you know about him?
Oh, yes. Riddle me something about him.
He played Bele. This was his only Star Trek appearance, and as you say, he's probably best known for his role as the Riddler in the original Batman. He also appeared in shows like Murder, She Wrote, Wonder Woman, and films like 12 Monkeys and Blood Moon. He died in 2005 when he was 72.
So we had 2 Batman stars in the last 2 weeks?
Yes. Yvonne Craig last week, obviously. Lou Antonio played Lokai. This was his only Star Trek role. And he's kind of had a dual-track career as a director and an actor. He's directed shows like Boston Legal, obviously with William Shatner, Chicago Hope and The West Wing, and he's appeared in shows like Mission Impossible and Bewitched, as well as the film Cool Hand Luke, opposite Paul Newman.
Very good movie.
He's now 87 years old.
Still going strong.
Well, probably not. Check this week in the news, just to be safe. This was the last episode to feature any contribution from Bob Justman or Gene Kuhn, who are 2 pivotal figures in the show's history. We've talked about them in the past. We talked before during the episode that the camera zoom in every red alert is apparently a nod to the original Batman series. The footage of the burnt-out buildings that we saw at the end as they imagined the devastation on Cheron is believed to be stock footage of London after the Blitz. In terms of international titles, in French this was simply Le Dilemma, or The Dilemma. In German it was Bele jagt Lokai, or Bele hunts Lokai. And in Japan, Wakose Seron no Tairitsu, or Confrontation on the planet Cheron.
Okay. It'd been funny if he'd been hunted down by Ian Beale from EastEnders.
That'd be really unfortunate.
British soap opera.
It's a very niche reference.
Well, not for people in the UK.
That's why most people like that. Next week, 16th episode of Season 3, The Mark of Gideon, with Spock trying to uncover a deception. So until then,
cheerio.
Bye-bye.